While we're waiting,
Good morning. This is the 2nd of July, 2023. This is the Fellowship of Spirit Fellowship in Farmington, New Mexico. My name is Ron Holloway, and I'll be your moderator today. We have a very special show today, and it's going to have Margaret Cheesebro and Shay Johnson are going to sing and do our music. I'm going to do our spiritual reading, and I'm actually prepared to do that. And Mark Wolf from Northern Kentucky is going to be giving us our message today. So enjoy it. And we're not really heavily attended today, but everybody that is here is supposed to be here, and they all have their own special light and their own special energy, and we are happy to have everyone that is here. So, Jerry, do you have any announcements other than we're going to have a board meeting next week? Next week, there will be a board meeting after our regular meeting. So if you have any special things that you'd like to bring to the board, or the board has, please bring them next week. All right. So, okay. So Margaret is now going to play our prelude, and so you can align your align your vibrations and let the rest of the world just stay outside, and we'll just sit in here and enjoy each other the next hour or so. Thank you, Margaret. Most of you could recognize Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, old favorite. So, Father, Mother, God, Supreme Intelligence, wisdom and light of the universe, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our relationships, to one another, and to you as we travel this journey of spiritual growth through our lives towards you. We ask that you would bless all who are serving this fellowship this morning. Help them and guide them. Bless their lives, and bless all who enter here and all that they love. Amen. All right. So now we have another song. Quiet Waters, number 309 in the Brown Book. Please join me in our reflection moment. Love produces a flow of energy that I now feel. I love others more than ever, and I feel privileged to be here. Love flows from one person to another as we create an atmosphere of holiness. And so it is. All right. And that brings me to me, I suppose. We have a different spiritual reader every week, and today is my turn. And this is from Around the Year with Emmett Fox. July 2nd says the title is Find Maturity. Why do you not remember your previous lives? Consider how prone people are to worry and grieve foolishly over the past events of this one life, and imagine their state if they had had the material of many lives to handle in this way. And so the past is mercifully withheld from us until we each reach the stage when we can regard our own histories impersonally and objectively. And when we do reach that age, it is possible to remember our previous lives. This is from Wordsworth. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, hath that elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter darkness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. And that's Wordsworth. Is it absolutely necessary to come back? The answer is that you need not come back if you will concentrate your whole heart upon God and seek his presence until you realize it completely. If you can do this, of all the tasks the most difficult, then you will leave this earth planet to enter into full communion with God, and you need never come back. Hardly anyone, however, is able to do this at present, and we so have to go on by stages, learning from experience, study, prayer, meditation, living life after life until at last we grow up spiritually. I must, in the mercy of the Lord, I trust in the mercy of the Lord forever and ever. That's Psalm 52:8. All right.
Ron, I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you still looking for somebody to do one of the week's readings?
I would gladly give up my section, my reading if someone wants to.
Is Jenny still doing hers and Steve still doing?
Yeah, they are. They were last month, and they have not signaled to me that they are unwilling to do it going forward.
Okay, but you are still looking for somebody.
I'm always looking for somebody who wants to get involved in the mechanics of Fellowship of Spirit.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have another song, and the title is This Is My Song, number 206.
Nations, the song
you so much. Beautiful, beautiful ladies. You know, we just began we have a lot of other stuff going on here at Fellowship of Spirit other than our weekly message. Yeah, that's better. We have a book study that starts in the morning at 8:45. So our Sundays start at 8:45. And we have it both in person and on Zoom. We don't record those sessions, however. This is the only one that we record and post on Zoom, on YouTube. But we have just began a book called, is it The Fulfillment of Desires? The Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desires by Deepak Chopra, in which he coined the phrase, I think he coined it, synchrodestiny, which contains within it synchronicity, and he explores those things and coincidence and synchronicity in our lives. And and he's already starting to talk about expanding that synchrodestiny experience. So it's pretty interesting, and you are all welcome. We have an unlimited seating space in our Zoom meeting, so you can come and be with us on Sunday mornings if you would like. Okay. Mark Wolf needs an introduction, although he really needs none. He is a cherished member of Fellowship of Spirit and a beloved brother who took off on travels a few years ago. And we didn't think that we would ever hear from him again, except through, communications and things, but we weren't going to be able to enjoy his spirited and animated, enlightened messages. And then COVID came along, and out of the darkness of COVID, we got a bunch of bright spots. We got some people who are able to come and share with us with Zoom that we thought we had lost forever, but they were not. They were just separated for a short period of time. So Mark Wolf has lots and lots of credentials, of which he doesn't really, propound. He is a humble man that is very learned and has a big heart, projects love and intelligence. And so today, if you would join me in welcoming Mark Wolf.
Well, thank you, Ron. What a sweet introduction. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's July, and summer is finally in full bloom. The year 2023 is now a little more than half over. I mean, when did that happen? And the 4th of July holiday is coming this week. I have to tell you this. I have wonderful memories of July the 4th there in Farmington with good food and friends and fireworks and perfect weather. Even John and Margot, even the 4th of July that was rained out. But at this time of year, especially, we like to take a few minutes to pause, to slow down, and be thankful for the freedom that we enjoy as Americans. Life, liberty, the pursuit of one's own happiness. But the thing is, those are more than just pretty words. Okay, Americans of all colors and all faiths and men and women have fought hard and struggled hard to make those words a reality for us, all of us, this morning. And even though the story of that fight and the history of America have almost always been the story of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And the history of America, and I really should be saying the history of the United States, is not a pretty story. The path to freedom has been a struggle, and the path toward civil rights has been a struggle, and the path to freedom has been a path soaked in blood. So this morning I want to take a step back and talk about the real basis of our freedom. Not the Constitution, not the Bill of Rights, not the Declaration of Independence, or any of that, but to step back even beyond all of that and talk about the real basis of our freedom. In what ways are we free? And what does that really even mean? Okay, we're going to talk about the spiritual foundation of our liberty. Now, let's ask a question. This idea of freedom, I mean, where did that even come from? Well, the thing of it is, it's woven into the Bible starting from almost the first page. The idea that we should be free to choose, to choose our own way, and to make up our own minds is presented to us starting in the second chapter of the book of Genesis. And we're offered a choice, okay? We're offered a choice not offered to the angels, but it was offered to us. And so in this amazing story, God speaks to Adam. And we understand the term Adam is a sort of a Bible code. It does not refer to a single individual, but rather it refers to all of us together as one unified individual spiritual being. And so if we look at Genesis chapter 2, starting in verse 16, it says, "And the Lord God commanded Adam, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." Okay, very familiar story. But with these words, we were afforded a choice. We were afforded freedom of choice. And the choice was really pretty simple, okay? And realizing that whatever we chose, there were going to be consequences. So we had door number one, eat freely from all the trees except for that one, live happily ever after. Or door number two, eat from that tree over there and bad stuff's going to happen. So we all know only too well how the story turned out. Because by choosing knowledge, okay, by choosing fragmentation, by choosing the path of knowledge, two things happened. All right. First, our spiritual universe flipped upside down. It inverted, and we gained a human ego. An ego became the master, and our divine spirit became a mostly silent servant in the upside down world. And second, because of that ego, chaos entered into the world. Now, the rest of the Bible is just really essentially the story of how to reconnect to God and remove the chaos. So let's ask a question. How do we remove chaos? Well, the removal of chaos is a process, okay? It is a process, but it begins with a choice that we can make freely. It is a sort of a counterintuitive choice, but it's a choice that we have the freedom to make. It is a choice to take upon ourselves what I'm calling this morning the yoke of freedom. Wait a minute. A yoke of freedom? Okay. Well, that doesn't make sense. Because what is a yoke? A yoke is a collar that you put around the neck of an animal so the animal can pull something really heavy. And then the word yoke has become symbolic of oppression. So we talk about, well, the yoke of communism, or the yoke of fascism, or the yoke of slavery, or the yoke of something else. So how can there be a yoke of freedom? It just doesn't make any sense. Well, it's really very simple, and it's a choice. When we take divine law, all right? We take divine law and we place divine law upon our ego and bind our ego with law, we gain freedom for our spirit. Okay, we place divine law upon our ego, and our spiritual universe begins to turn right side up again. Okay, our spirit, the light of God within us, becomes the master gradually. And the ego gradually becomes the silent servant it's supposed to be. When we choose to take God's law upon our ego, then our spirit becomes immersed in grace. Okay, so let's ask a question. Well, divine law, I mean, that sounds kind of heavy. What does that mean? Well, it's very simple. Okay. Now, it is spelled out in intense detail in the Jewish scriptures, but it's really very simple in its essence. You know, in the early years of the Christian era, Rabbi Hillel in Jerusalem was asked a question. He said, Rabbi Hillel, can you recite the entire Torah while standing on one foot? In other words, can you recite Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy all while standing on one foot? And Rabbi Hillel said, no problem. That's easy. And so Rabbi Hillel says, he stood on, let's see if I can do this. See if I can do it. Stood on one foot. He says, you shall love the Lord. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn it for yourself. The very famous rabbi from Nazareth was asked a similar question. We read about this in Matthew chapter 22, verse 39, says, Rabbi, what's the greatest commandment? And the rabbi answered. He said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. And the flip side is similar. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. And so by placing divine law upon our ego, we gain divine grace upon our spirit. You see, ego does not want to love its neighbor. All right? Ego wants to judge. Ego wants to be right. Ego wants to be special, and ego wants something to gossip about. Ego wants to be special and have its own way. Ego wants everything for itself, and ego wants to stay in its own comfort zone. But when we bind that ego consciousness with divine law, and we treat people with kindness, and we treat people with compassion and respect, and we get out of our comfort zone to help others and share with them, then we have taken upon ourselves the yoke of freedom. And when we choose to place this divine law upon our ego consciousness, we gain freedom from for our soul and for our spiritual self, so that we can blossom like the summer flowers into who we really are. And we start to remove the chaos. We start to remove the chaos from our own lives as well as from the whole world. You know, talk about this yoke of freedom. The rabbi from Nazareth talked about it. Okay, he talked about it. We find this in the book of Matthew, chapter 11, starting in verse 29. He said, the rabbi says, take my yoke upon yourself and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is not heavy. Take my yoke upon yourself. Once again, familiar words. But now wait a minute. Let's ask a question. This whole thing about a yoke, I mean, where did that even come from? We all, it's familiar words. Take my yoke upon yourself. But where did it even come from? Well, the thing of it is, it comes from the book of the prophet Jeremiah. Now, who reads Jeremiah anymore? But the story of a yoke was a story that would have been familiar to the Jewish audience that the rabbi was speaking to. So in the time of Jeremiah the prophet, the people in the land of Judah did not want this yoke of divine law anymore. They were tired of it. All right. They wanted to have some fun. And said this divine law, this is a downer. We don't want it anymore. We don't divine protection. Who needs divine protection? We got an army. Okay, who needs divine blessings? God forbid. We're amazing. We don't want this anymore. And so they forgot that the foundation of their freedom, the foundation of their protection was in their connection to God. Okay, the protection was in the connection. And so Jeremiah came to warn them about the danger of becoming disconnected from God. And so what his is interesting was what Jeremiah did was he took a wooden yoke and he put it around his own neck as a sort of a visual aid or a teaching tool. And Jeremiah said to the people, hey, if you choose to disconnect from God and you throw away God's law, you will be in danger from the king of Babylon, from Nebuchadnezzar. And you see this wooden yoke on my neck? Well, that's what's going to happen to all of you. Because the king of Babylon will come and he will conquer this land and everybody will be taken into slavery. But, oh, you knew that was coming. But there was another prophet at the same, now he said he was a prophet, and his name was Hananiah. And Hananiah said to the people, oh, please. What a downer. Do whatever you want to do. We don't need no divine law. And Hananiah says, I declare the power of the king of Babylon to be broken. And so Hananiah yanked the wooden yoke off of Jeremiah, threw it on the ground and smashed it and says, we'll have no more of that nonsense. And so Jeremiah says, okay, so you've rejected the warning of the wooden yoke. But what's coming now is a yoke of iron. And so Nebuchadnezzar and the army of Babylon came, indeed, and they conquered the land of Judah, sacked Jerusalem, and the inhabitants were taken away into slavery under a yoke of iron. And so that's the backstory. And when the rabbi said, take my yoke upon you, he says, learn from me. In other words, become like me, because to learn from a teacher is to become like that teacher. Take my yoke upon yourself. In other words, bind your little ego self with the law of God, to love one another, to care for one another, to share with one another and respect one another until your ego becomes uncomfortable. And always seek a closer connection to God so that you have more light to share. Okay, that is the foundation of freedom. So, what are we free to do? Well, I'm glad you asked. One of the most amazing things that this yoke of freedom gives us is power. Power, an enormous power. You see, the thing is that when we chose, we're all there, and when we chose the path of knowledge, chaos was able to enter the world. And so we look around and we perceive chaos. I mean, seriously, chaos keeps the evening news in business. You want to see some chaos? Turn on the news. They'll be happy to show you some. And one of the most basic ways that chaos appears in our world is to create the appearance that there is no cause and effect, to create the appearance that the world is random. Now, the ancient religions, the ancient pagan religions would have said, well, you know, it's all up to the gods. Whatever the gods desire. You know, it's just, well, whatever the gods decide. And every time they said, well, it's all up to the gods, what they meant was everything is random. It's all decided by forces greater than we are, and we humans have no input into it, no control over it, and we're simply victims of forces that the gods control. And yet this morning, I tell you something entirely different. When we choose to take upon ourselves God's law, upon our ego, we make it the foundation of our freedom, something rather miraculous occurs. Okay, something rather miraculous and yet astoundingly simple. It's cause and effect. The world is not random. It only looks that way because our world is upside down. Because in our upside down world, the effect appears to be separated from the cause. Whereas in the right side up spiritual world, the cause and the effect are the same. So in our world, it does often appear that good goes unrewarded. It does often appear that bad goes unpunished. More often it appears that the good is punished and bad is rewarded, but that's only the appearance. Now, this is spelled out in a very interesting way. Once again, if we go back to the book of Jeremiah in chapter 5, let's listen. Jeremiah says, "For among God's people, there are wicked men. They lie in wait like someone who sets a snare, and they set traps to catch people. Like a cage of noisy birds, their houses are full of lies. But this is how they've grown great. This is how they've grown wealthy and fat and sleek. Yes, they overlook the deeds of the wicked. They do not defend the orphan. They do not take care of the needy. And yet they prosper. Shall I not punish them for these things, says the Lord?" Okay. Good does not go unrewarded, and bad does not go unpunished, even though that's how it often appears. You know, this idea is summed up very beautifully, very succinctly, actually, by none other than Paul in the New Testament. He's writing a letter to the young Christian community in modern day Turkey in the book of Galatians in chapter 6. And he says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that will he also reap." How amazing that is. How utterly amazing that is. It is power. It is power that we are free to use. When we're talking about how are we free? We're free to use this power. Because when we choose to place upon ourselves this divine law, we automatically have the power to plant good seeds into the soil of our future. Seeds of love, and seeds of kindness, and seeds of caring, and seeds of forgiveness, seeds of connection. And when we do that, our harvest will not be random. Our harvest will be what we planted: love and connection and joy and peace. That's power. And we are free to use that right now. It gets even more amazing. What do we have the freedom to do? We have the freedom to tell God how we want to be treated. Excuse me? This is all so heavy, isn't it? It's fun, but it's heavy. Let's take a break. I have to tell you this. I have this new laptop computer. We're using it now. My son picked it out for me. It has Windows 11. Windows 11. Last thing I noticed was like Windows 3 or 4 or something. I don't even remember. Windows 11. And so I'm very sophisticated now. I'm streaming Pandora. Okay. You know, the music thing, whatever it is. Okay. So on the satellite radio app, free with most trials and popular subscriptions. So anyway, Pandora, I've been teaching Pandora what I want to listen to. You know, she's pretty smart. It's artificial intelligence, right? Some kind of artificial intelligence. But anyway, I've been teaching Pandora what I want to listen to. And after a few sessions, she started to figure it out. Well, listen, the crazy thing is that this is not new. This is not even new. God offered us this same service a long time ago. All right. The freedom to tell God, the freedom to teach God how to deal with us and how to treat us is found in the middle of the Bible, tucked away in the book of Psalms, chapter 18. Psalm 18, starting in verse 25. says, this is David speaking to God, and David says, with the merciful, you will show yourself merciful. With a blameless person, you will show yourself blameless. With the pure, you will show yourself pure. But with the devious, you will show yourself in an underhanded way. And so you will lift up the humble and bring down an arrogant face. So when we take this in, this is amazing. This is amazing. We take this in, we start to learn from it. And how can we not be amazed at the power that is placed at our disposal, a power that was not offered to the angels, is freely offered to us now. So what does it mean? If we want divine mercy in our own lives, then we must be merciful to the people in our lives. If we want to experience divine love in our own lives, we have to be loving to the people in our lives. If we want God to be generous with us and bless us abundantly, then what do we have to do? We have to be generous with the people in our lives. Okay, it's very simple. Basically, it's cause and effect. If we want God to be generous with us, we are required, okay? We are required to be generous with the people around us. It is not random. It is cause and effect. And the power is within us right this moment. And when we choose to be kind, we choose to be merciful, then what are we really doing? When we choose to be loving, we choose to share generously, what are we really doing? We are taking upon ourselves the yoke of freedom. Take my yoke upon yourself. My yoke is easy. My burden is not heavy. See, in our upside down spirit, our upside down world, our burden is heavy because this world is dark and this world is full of hopelessness and it appears to be random and chaotic. And this is the point the rabbi was trying to make. His yoke is the yoke of love. It is then the yoke of power that becomes the yoke of freedom. We are free at every moment to plant seeds of love and safety and forgiveness and joy and blessing because we are free at every moment to share these blessings with others. We are free to connect to miracles of God's love by choosing to move outside the easy comfort zone of our ego and share generously. This is the foundation of freedom. So, what have we learned so far? Let's take a minute and review. We live in a fragmented, broken, upside-down world, dominated by the voice of ego, where the divine light is mostly silent. In order to move the world right side up again, we place divine law upon our ego. That divine law is easy. It's not difficult to carry. It is to love one another, to share generously with one another, always seeking a closer connection to God's light. Through a conscious use of the law of cause and effect, we have the power to bring joy and blessing into our lives. And perhaps the most amazing of all, we have the authority, an authority not given to the angels, to teach God how we want God to deal with us in this world by the way we choose to treat the people whom we deal with. Divine law sets our spirit free when we place the yoke of divine law upon our ego, and then that yoke becomes the foundation of our freedom. Now, we started out this morning by remembering the 4th of July coming later this week. And, it's freedom and fireworks and flags. And for a little while, everything turns red, white, and blue. The 4th of July is a lovely American holiday. It was the 4th of July on 2018 that I arrived at my brother's house in Florida. Where did the time go? And I remember having a long conversation at the kitchen table with my brother in Florida about this foundation of freedom. It was a long conversation. You see, my brother was angry that the American government in Washington, D.C. would not openly embrace Christianity and declare the United States to be an exclusively Christian nation. And I said, well, yeah, there are a lot of Christian people in the United States, and the people who founded our country had a generally Judeo-Christian outlook on the world. But there are also a lot of other faiths in our country. There are people with no particular faith. There are people who have no interest in faith. And I said, it's important that our government in Washington remain neutral and stay out of the churches altogether. It's important that our government should allow our country to be a place where people are free to explore their spirituality and make up their own minds. The government does not need to make up our minds for us, particularly about matters of faith. People need to ask, do I believe in God? Do I not believe in God? Do I care? These are questions for us to address individually and in churches, not in the state house. In churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, whatever, okay? Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but keep Caesar out of the churches. Because the moment the state and the church merge, persecution always follows. Freedom gets thrown out the stained glass window, and people of minority opinions like ours will be the first to be targeted. It's true that the foundation of our freedom is ultimately spiritual. It's also true that the freedom to choose is found in the Bible in the 2nd chapter of Genesis. The light of God offers everyone on earth the freedom to choose how they will shape their spiritual path. We are free not to follow a spiritual path. It is a freedom given by God. But the freedoms that we celebrate on the 4th of July are the freedoms that were afforded to us by the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. Okay? Our civil rights, our equal rights, equal protection, marriage rights, all of that has come at a price. They were not given freely. They have been paid for with struggle and paid for in blood. And keeping them and maintaining them will also be a struggle and will come at a price. But we're still blessed. We're still fortunate to live in a time and a place where the government does not decide our matters of faith. Because the ultimate foundation of freedom is only spiritual. Freedom comes with a yoke of divine law upon our ego self, a yoke of love for one another, sharing with one another, and seeking connection to God. In that freedom, we have the power to create our future by the seeds we are free to plant today. And we have been given an authority not offered to the angels to tell God how to treat us by the way we choose to treat others. Foundation of freedom came to us. It was given to us out of love. So as we've seen before, ultimately, love is all there is. I love all of you. Ron, back to you.
Thank you. All right. Another great talk by Mark Wolf. Who wants to come forward and say something to Mark? Marianne is coming forward.
Good.
Hi, Mark. Thank you.
Hey, you're looking well.
Thank you for this talk. It was wonderful. In the guide's next book, which is not ready to come out yet, there is a message in there called the spaciousness of humility, which I think fits it with, and they're speaking of divine humility. And divine humility, the opposite of our mind's ego. And it states, if I can remember, it's been a while since, it states that when there is divine humility, there is a spaciousness within us that allows spirit. And I think that's that fits in with what you were saying. And I thank you so much,
Says it better.
Doc.
Thank you, Marion. Now Jerry's coming forward. Jerry Law.
Uh-oh. I'm in trouble now.
My reputation precedes me.
Hey, Jerry.
Hi, Mark. It's good to see you.
You
Potluck,
too.
I always think of you and your desserts on Potluck Sunday.
You're a sweetie.
You are. I like your choice of words on that yoke of freedom, and I love the fact that we put it over on our ego when we remember to do it. And so, as always, your thoughts cause me to think. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Are those inalienable rights that are talked about? Those God-given rights are the basis of our freedoms. Is that right, Mark?
Some freedom is given by God.
Yeah.
Civil rights are given by the Constitution.
Well, anyway, it was great, and we love it, and we do miss you every Sunday, but especially potluck Sundays. And this is potluck Sunday, so we will just give Mark a hand in appreciation of his sharing with us today, and we will continue on with the rest of our program. Thank you, Mark, and I hope that you have a great day. I hope you on the 4th that you're able to freely and abundantly celebrate all that you shared with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have we make our own world, number 359. Thank you so much for the music today. Beautiful as always. And the message timely and all go together in great synchronicity. Synchronicity. What a good word. Okay, so now we're going to have our celebration of abundance. So let us put over our hearts that which we intend to continue to contribute, and repeat after me. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive through infinity. I am prosperous. Okay, we study Course in Miracles on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock Mountain Time, led by Susan Barnes from Belize via Zoom. The Power of Eight starts at 6:30 p.m. on Thursdays and is coordinated by Margaret Cheesebro, it also via Zoom. So,
You might want to mention also that Kundalini Yoga is on Monday, not tomorrow.
is it every Monday?
It's not tomorrow because of holiday, but it's every Monday at 5:30.
Okay, and the lady's name is
Elizabeth Lay.
Elizabeth Lay gives Kundalini yoga lessons, or they get together and practice those things under her tutelage, and she's is on Mondays at 5:30 here in the sanctuary.
They can call me for more information.
If you have any questions about any of these things, you're feel free to call Jerry Lord on her number. So we thank you for being with us. We thank you for you coming to share with us today. And it's just about time for us to go eat. So we're going to have Brother Clark here to give us our closing message.
Good morning, everyone. Happy 4th of July weekend. As simple as possible. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Albert Einstein. Whether it's an argument with a loved one, a technological problem, a flawed work process, or a personal inner conflict, life is full of opportunities for us to overcomplicate our situation. We need to look for the simplest solution, but there is a danger in oversimplifying too. Feelings get hurt, and we may do our work poorly when we gloss over important details. So the goal is, I can walk the balance between overcomplicating and an oversimplifying situation. There is a happy medium where I can find the best path. Yeah, I guess that's what they say with what would Jesus do? Find the best path. Y'all have a great weekend. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other announcements? Does anybody have anything? Do we have any music coming up or anything happening other than 4th of July? We'll be here in a couple of days. So hope that you have a great celebration, have lots to eat, and lots of patriotic thoughts as well. And keep Brother Mark's message in your heart and in your mind. Most of these things, everything comes from God anyway. Just show me a place where God is not. And so anyway, let's gather up, circle up, and we'll sing our songs. Small circle today, everybody's out celebrating already.
So camping.
until we meet again.
Amen.
Well, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Well,
I already got a hook for you, but I'd take it.
hope that you have a great, glorious,
Hey.
and fun and safe 4th of July. We're gonna sign off and see you later, Mark. Have
All
a
right.
great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hear anything to install